Sara Ebersole mysteriously vanished after getting into a truck with two unknown men. 2 years later, despite no body ever being recovered, she has been presumed deceased and a death certificate has been issued. But with an uncooperative suspect and a volatile ex-partner in the picture, what really happened to Sara Ebersole? As we uncover the details of this unsolved mystery, let me know what you believe happened to Sara. Sara Gail Ebersole was born on the 18th of September 1996 and raised in Sarasota, Florida, as the youngest of 7 siblings. But her childhood was far from stable. Her early home life was marked by abuse and addiction, and by the age of 3, Sara was placed in the care of her maternal aunt and uncle. She even came to view her uncle as her father figure. However, this environment also proved unsafe. When Sara was just 14 years old, her uncle reportedly pulled a gun on her. When her aunt then suggested placing Sara into foster care, her older sister Michelle intervened. Michelle later said that there was just no question. She could not allow her sister to enter the care system, so she took Sara into her home. Remarkably, Michelle and Sara had only reconnected just 2 weeks earlier through MySpace. The sisters had different fathers, so the timing of their reconnection ultimately allowed Sara to escape being placed into care. At 18, Sara married and moved to Dunellen in Florida. The marriage, though, was short-lived, ending just 1 year later. And not long after, Sara entered a tumultuous relationship with Joseph Mayton, with whom she had a daughter. On the 3rd of March 2023, 26-year-old Sara Ebersole seemingly vanished. There has been no contact from her since, no phone activity, no bank transactions, and no body recovered. The day before, on the 2nd of March, Sara worked as an exotic dancer at Cafe Risk from noon until 7 p.m. After work, she just returned home as usual and walked her roommate's dog. Later that evening, just before 10 p.m, Sara then went to a nearby Circle K gas station in Reddick, Florida. Then at 10:11 p.m, she sent what would become her final text message to her sister Michelle. It read, "Getting into a random truck with some cowboys. I hope they take me on a ride." Surveillance footage from the gas station shows Sara getting into a black pickup truck with 2 unknown men. Michelle later said that Sara was known for being really spontaneous and frequently meeting new people, so behaviour like that, although risky, was not completely out of character for her. But what was unusual was the silence. After this point, Sara wouldn't reply to messages and she wouldn't answer her phone. So, unable to reach her, Sara's roommate attempted to report her missing. However, police initially declined to take the report, stating that Sara needed to be missing for a full week. A few days later, a second report was filed by the family, and detectives were formally assigned to the case on the 15th of March 2023. Sara's home was searched, but nothing was immediately alarming. Not to investigators, at least. Her bed appeared to be untouched, there were no signs of forced entry or a struggle, and there was no dirty or discarded clothing. Her cigarettes and her lighter were also still on the porch. The only item that investigators believed to be missing was approximately $1,000, the money that Sara had earned at work that night. But there was one detail that really stood out. Sara's shoes were neatly placed on the shelf by the door, something that we'll return to shortly. On the 12th of May, police identified the 2 men from the black pickup truck as Leonard Anderson and James Robinson, also known as Bubba. Both of the men were interviewed, and they weren't initially considered directly involved in Sara's disappearance. Leonard told investigators he drove Sara and Bubba to a nearby residence located at 18080 North US Highway 441 in Reddick, Florida. This was just 2 houses down from the gas station and just around the corner from Sara's own home. This residence was subdivided. Bubba lived in one half while couple James Scholar, also known as Jimmy, and Tisha Dermott lived in the other half. According to accounts, Sara would spend several hours there socialising with Bubba, Jimmy and Tisha. And this timeline later aligned perfectly with digital evidence recovered during the investigation. But from this point forward, accounts of what happened next begin to get a bit hazy. At approximately 1:24 a.m, Bubba texted a man named Tyrone Mormon, mentioning that Sara was at his residence. Tyrone responded, asking if Sara would be interested in meeting him and whether he could come over to Bubba's, and Bubba agreed. The exact time Tyrone arrived is unclear, but records indicate that he travelled roughly 5 miles to the residence during the early morning hours of the 3rd of March, leaving his fiancée and 3 children at home. He arrived in his fiancée's blue Hyundai Sonata. When police later questioned the residents of the home, they initially stated that Sara had left in an Uber. They described the driver as a Hispanic man in his mid-30s, tall and thin, with dark hair. However, investigators determined that Sara did not request an Uber that night, though they couldn't completely rule out the possibility that she may have accepted a ride from someone else. According to family accounts, progress in the investigation was slow. Frustrated by the lack of updates, Michelle began accessing Sara's online accounts herself. By December 2023, 9 months into the investigation, Michelle uncovered photos taken on the night of Sara's disappearance. One image was taken at 10:10 p.m. at the gas station with Bubba, just 1 minute before Sara sent her final text message to Michelle. Then more group photos were taken at Bubba's home between 11:08 p.m. and 1:22 a.m. and this photo is thought to be the last photo taken of Sara. Michelle also discovered YouTube activity on Sara's phone between 1:57 a.m. and 2:40 a.m, followed by a Gmail sync. Shortly after this, Sara's Gmail account, including its location data, was completely wiped. Although investigators found little of concern at Sara's home, Michelle noticed very specific items were missing. These included Sara's hairbrush, makeup brushes, and her toothbrush, all items that would contain DNA. Police located a plastic toothbrush, but Michelle noted that Sara was environmentally conscious and she would only use bamboo charcoal toothbrushes. Michelle is sure that the plastic toothbrush would likely be used for cleaning floors or shoes. She also noticed a missing teddy with the name Dahlia written on its t-shirt. The teddy was from the birth of her daughter. At this time, she was in a volatile custody battle with her daughter's dad, Joseph Mayton. Legal documents were also gone, including paperwork documenting the change of her daughter's name from Dahlia Marie Van to Cora Dahlia Mayton, as well as a binder containing records related to Joseph's criminal history. But even more puzzling was the shoes we mentioned earlier, neatly placed by the door, were the same shoes Sara was wearing in the photos taken the night of her disappearance. The clothes she'd been wearing, though, were nowhere to be found. Did Sara return home that night, or were the shoes maybe placed there later? Sara's roommate Deborah was away that evening, so unfortunately she couldn't provide clarification. As time passed, witness accounts started to change. According to Sara's family, Bubba later told them that he helped Tyrone carry Sara by her hands and feet to the Hyundai at around 4 a.m. He says she was in an unconscious state. Michelle later shared this account publicly on Facebook. It said that Tyrone then left with Sara alone. They also say that Tyrone returned to the home around 10 to 15 minutes later. He grabbed a black item like a phone or a purse, and then he left again. Sara didn't exit the vehicle in this time. Police then focused more closely on Tyrone Mormon, knowing him as the last person to be with Sara. Tyrone denied any involvement though, and claimed he was actually out of town. Records showed that he and his fiancée did book an Airbnb, from the 3rd of March for their anniversary, but they didn't arrive at the reservation until around 4 p.m. that day. This was hours after Sara was last seen. When asked for his phone, Tyrone told police it was broken and that he had thrown it away in the bin, but his fiancée contradicted this claim, stating that his phone wasn't broken. Tyrone was then arrested the following day, on the 20th of December 2023, for providing false information to law enforcement, and of course surrendered his device. And what investigators found suggested he had something to hide. Data recovered from the phone suggested that Tyrone and Sara stopped at a 24-hour convenience store in northwest Marion County during the early hours of the 3rd of March, completely contradicting his earlier statements. Without sufficient evidence to charge him, Tyrone was released on bail 1 day later. His connection to Sara remains unclear, but he has been publicly identified as a suspect since the first anniversary of her disappearance. And to this day, he has still not disclosed where he took Sara that morning.
And here we are at 5 minutes and 10 seconds, pulling into the Reddick home. 5 minutes and 10 seconds is all it would take for Tyrone Mormon to get to the residence where my sister last was seen, Sara Ebersole. This is the property.
Tragically, Bubba died of an overdose on the 18th of May 2024, roughly 2 months after Tyrone was named a suspect, eliminating a key witness in this case. He was found on the sofa by his roommate, but some rumours online claim that he was actually found in a field. As with many cases today, theories have circled online around the disappearance of Sara Ebersole. Some believe Sara was trafficked, some say she may have overdosed and was dumped somewhere, and some believe she may actually still be alive but is being held hostage. But there are also some theories surrounding Sara's violent ex-boyfriend, Joseph Mayton. Joseph was born in Tampa, Florida on the 22nd of April 1980, making him 46 when Sara disappeared. Together, Sara and Joseph had a daughter in 2018 named Dahlia Marie Van, which Joseph later changed to Cora Dahlia Mayton. He's described as violent and manipulative, with court records showing Sara filed for a restraining order after he attacked her while she was pregnant. The relationship only became increasingly toxic from here. Sara alleged that Joseph accessed her accounts and monitored her digitally, accessing her emails, her photos, text messages, and her GPS location. And this stalking continued even after they broke up. As a result, Sara was forced to get a new phone number on multiple occasions, with the most recent being the 23rd of January 2023, less than 2 months before she disappeared. As already mentioned, the couple were involved in an ongoing custody dispute, during which Sara claimed that Joseph would frequently withhold visitation. She reportedly feared for her daughter's safety, knowing his violent tendencies, but was unable to physically check on her. Joseph's behaviour following Sara's disappearance has also raised concerns for Sara's family. Following the disappearance, Joseph filed for the custody of Dahlia, but of course, given the circumstances, as well as Joseph's violent history, Michelle objected and filed for the temporary guardianship of her niece. This petition, however, was dismissed in court, and Joseph was granted custody of his daughter. He later left Florida, relocating between Indiana and Kentucky, mainly living in hotels. Also, just weeks after Sara's disappearance, on the morning of the 29th of March, Joseph was involved in a motor accident. Then on the same evening, he was arrested for the assault and battery of a 75-year-old male. He suffered a bleed to the brain, but prosecutors later dropped the felony.
And this way I have all the angles, so...
You see? I just pushed them. Did you see this one here?
Mm-hmm.
I did not.
Obviously, this doesn't directly have any link to the disappearance of Sara, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Over a year after the disappearance, Joseph set up a GoFundMe campaign to fund a reward for anyone that can give enough information that would lead to Sara's whereabouts. Timing that critics find suspicious. This campaign was launched just a couple of months before he filed for bankruptcy, and while he was receiving multiple eviction letters for failing to pay his hotel fees. To this day, Joseph has not been named a suspect in Sara's case, or at least not publicly. Some people believe that Joseph may have been at Sara's home that night, just waiting, which explains why her shoes may still have been in her home. Authorities have assumed that Sara has been deceased since the 3rd of March 2023, the very day of her disappearance. And despite no body ever being recovered, no cause or manner of death established, and no qualifying evidence, a death certificate was issued in 2025. There are just so many unanswered questions in this case. Someone knows where Sara Ebersole went that night. And until that person speaks, this case may remain frozen in time. Let me know what you think happened to Sara.